As the 21st century began, human evolution was at a turning point. Natural selection, the process by which the strongest, the smartest, the fastest reproduced in greater numbers than the rest, a process which had once favored the noblest traits of man, now began to favor different traits.
People that we think are very smart are not necessarily very smart. They are more likely to be educated in their particular field or very experienced in their careers, and we confuse that with smartness.
My talk today is about some powerful things you grown-ups can do that shape us as children and the adults we become. How do I know? Because my parents and people around me did them, early and often.
Hello, welcome to another video. In today's video, we're talking about education. We're talking about intelligence. And I'm going to outline what schooling should look like if we are truly concerned about education. But first, let's hear from some actually smart people, because being as smart as I am is nowhere near as smart as these people are.
Let's talk more about our brains. The blue bag is the rough size and weight of a healthy baby's brain at birth. The red one is a baby's brain after the first year. It almost doubles in volume. And by my age, it's almost 90% the volume of an adult brain. Our brains develop faster in our early years than at any other time in our lives. It can create up to 1 million neural connections every second. But we need your help. Our healthy development depends on these top 5 things. 1, connecting. 2, talking. 3, playing. 4, a healthy home. 5, community.
At the age of 6 or 7 months, I started pointing at objects and giving their correct names. Little red pair of shoes with little brass buckles on them that I really loved, and I thought that buckle was a beautiful word, so I pointed to the buckle on one of these shoes and said, "Buckle." Shortly thereafter, I started talking in sentences. I seemed to have an understanding of syntax, and so I was a very early talker. I heard my mother talking about this little girl. Becky already knew how to read. I thought, well, I'm certainly not going to be beaten by her. She didn't seem especially intelligent to me, and I just knew I could out-accelerate her. At the age of 3 or 4, I started writing a book. It's an illustrated volume on snakes, lizards, and turtles.
So, when you think of intelligence, you normally think of the one intelligence that most people refer to, and that is intellectual intelligence. And Howard Gardner says there are actually multiple types of intelligence.
Yes, however, if a parent puts the child's booties on the fast track, as I call it, when they're only six months of age, I think this will artificially raise the child's level of intellectual functioning.
Each time you talk to us, play with us, make us laugh, it not only builds and strengthens our relationships and mental health.
Okay, as I've shown here by taking these other people's videos and showing them to you, is that our education system, starting at 5 years old, is completely broken. By 5 years old, you already have an idiot, potentially, if the parent is waiting for the education to start at 5 years old. So what needs to happen is we need to completely rethink what it is to have kids. So, number one, people need to have genetic tests to make sure that they're suitable partners for each other and the baby is going to be genetically stable. Number two, the parents need to Now, I actually think we need to actually move towards like a, a society that has separation. So imagine we have a city type or a city type area or a county or a, village or something like this, right? And everyone there is parents. That's it. Period. There's parents. Okay, and that's the whole thing. It's just raising kids. That's the job, because it's actually really important to have kids raised correctly. And so having parents needing to do 40 hours each a week and raise kids is ridiculous. Okay? So we have entire regions, areas, cities, whatever, and it's just for raising kids. It's just for families. Okay? Now, the education system itself starts at before the baby is even born. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that there's classrooms full, and quite the contrary. I think we need to move away from full classrooms. I think classrooms should be super small, maybe broken up classroom, and there's, really the number of teachers per student needs to be drastically different. But when you have all the parents in the parenting kid raising area, that's exactly what those parents should be doing. Teaching, okay? And also the teaching of the kids can be done by the kids. So we need to remove this grade school, middle school, high school thing and college, right? So you go through all the education, although life is lifelong education, but there's like the first education chunk, and I think we can get a lot more done in the same amount of time. In other words, I think we can have college done by 18 if we change the system. Okay? So having one giant school thing that's literally got it all, right? So kids can gravitate towards their natural abilities, just like this 8 intelligence thing. We need to focus on having choices of options of education, but letting the kids go that way. And also having the kids circadian rhythms observed. So just saying every kid's got to get up at 4:30 in the morning and go and sit in this class all day is ridiculous, okay? Sitting down is also another problem with the schools today. They should be standing desks, okay? Sitting or standing, depending on if the child wants to be sitting or standing, okay? Because the focus is the education. The focus isn't sitting in the desk, okay? So we have these areas that are focused on education. Okay, now around the world, the other areas would be like industrial areas that are, and there's like normal areas that are kid-free, basically. I mean, just basically, yeah. And then there's areas like retirement, right? So there's really no, there's no just retirement areas. And then there's vacation areas, right? So I think separating out society a little bit, where, you're going to start off your life in one of these areas that is focused on education, where you grow up around everybody, and that's all, and it, and there's 8 different intelligences, right? So having all these things available, and just giant maker spaces, just like all the latest technology, all the latest of everything. Okay? That and as far as like the teachers, the number of teachers in a classroom, I mean, we're talking about, there should be like maybe 5 or 6 kids per teaching person. But teaching persons, I think, like, once you get to a certain age, I think it's actually maybe good if everybody becomes a teacher. So you're, I don't know, whatever, 9 or 10 years old, and whatever you learned when you were like 3 or 4, by the time you're like 9 or 10, you should be able to teach that to a 3-year-old or whatever, right? So, and the details of all this, obviously, but I hope the understanding of what I'm saying is how we get more teachers is by, and really, if all the parents are in this area, all this, why even 5 kids? But I think it's good to have a certain amount of kids, especially grouped towards their intellect and their interests, okay? And now another thing is get rid of this grading system. This like, oh, you're this age and you're in this grade. That needs to be, that's garbage, okay? It is just by an individual's progression through life. So if your intellect is like on the level of Marilyn, Savant, or Chris Langan, then you're going to be progressing through the schooling at a much faster rate. And that's good. And it's good to have the school set up to actually be able to do that.
If I had it all to do over again, I'd become a politician. Now, politicians are not synonymous with smarts, I know. But wouldn't you rather see a really smart person in front of a microphone?
You can't run a democracy with a citizenry that really doesn't know how to make valid decisions. Most people don't even know what decision theory is. They don't know what maximization of utility is.
Evolution does not necessarily reward intelligence. With no natural predators to thin the herd, it began to simply reward those who reproduced the most.
Oh shit, I'm pregnant again!
Shit! I got too many damn kids. Thought you was on the pill or some shit.
Hell no!
Must have been thinking of Brittany.
Brittany? No, you didn't!
Cleavon is lucky to be alive. He attempted to jump a jet ski from a lake into a swimming pool and impaled his crotch on an iron gate. But thanks to recent advances in stem cell research and the fine work of Doctors Krensky and Altschuler, Cleavon should regain full reproductive function.
Get your hands off my junk!
And so it went for generations, although few, if any, seemed to notice.
We have to have an educated and intelligent citizenry, which I regret to say we don't necessarily have at the present time.
Say you had the opportunity to run the world. How would you do it?
Well, one of the first things that I would do is I would institute something like the Manhattan Project for a safe, long-lasting means of birth control. Simply implant that in all children at age 10. Or I should probably say anti-dysgenics. Prevent undesirable genetic mutations in the human genome. We like to think that it is our right to breed as incontinently as we want to, have as many kids with whomever we want to. Future generations of mankind are being saddled with the results of what we do.
Meanwhile, Rita had awakened to find that the world's oldest profession was a lot easier when the world is populated by morons.
Welcome.